Welcome everybody to
Ringside Rhetoric.
I am DJ Steele along with
Charmaine.
That's right, Charmaine, and we are talking today about relationships and the Bible.
Wow.
We have our special guest this evening. We have Reverend Alex Nelson. How are you doing, sir?
Well, thank you.
Yes, happy
And
to be along.
we're just going to have a good little discussion today.
On what? On what, DJ Steele?
We're going to be talking about different forms of millennial relationships.
Versus those traditional relationships.
Right. And where they are in the Bible and what the Bible says about them.
Ooh, very hot topic.
And the first thing we're going to start with, homosexuality.
Whoa.
Yeah, we start with the hard
Right
Out the gate.
So, Reverend Nelson, tell us your views on homosexuality.
Well, before we dive in,
Okay.
let him tell him a little bit about himself, how long he's been in the ministry and things of that nature.
Okay.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Well, I've been in the ministry for about 30 years.
Wow.
And I was licensed and ordained while I was on active duty in the military, retired from the Army. And we've been at Second Calvary for maybe about 20 years.
Oh, wow. That is
I
good.
work with the youth. That's
And
my
just so you
primary
know,
job.
that's my church too. I just want y'all to know that.
And we do claim it. We claim it. Gladly.
That's right.
Have
And,
to join in one Sunday.
Well, there's another connection because he's really close friends with my son-in-law.
Oh, wow. That's
And
good.
his son-in-law is my best friend.
Okay, wow, what a blessing. Now, we can go into this
What was it
topic.
you wanted me to say?
Right.
And I know we're going to talk about the relationships and, you know, how it refers to our everyday living as well as in the Bible as well. So, as DJ Steele alluded to earlier, you know, how about the homosexuality, especially during these days, the millennials is so out there.
And the LGBT
And the
movement.
LGBT movement, and of course, you know, we love everybody.
That's right.
So we're not here to bash or to say what to do, but just give encouragement and enlightenment into, you know, how to try to live better lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Well, let me say from the outset, there's a hard look at same-sex relationships, homosexuality,
That's true.
both in the Old
Right.
Testament and in the New Testament.
Yes.
Right.
Now, under the Mosaic Law, that type of behavior was condemnable and punishable by death.
Mm.
So there's some people, sadly, today who still want to subscribe to that type of
That's
punishment.
true, which is not right.
No,
But
it's not.
yeah,
It's not.
that's not right.
And so I mentioned to Carl before that one of the criticisms that I have of the church is that we, in looking at same-sex relationships, homosexuality, we bring greater condemnation on that than anything else. So
That is
let me
true.
say from the outset that while it's wrong, so is extramarital affairs.
Yeah.
So is fudging on your taxes.
Yeah.
So is overeating.
Exactly.
Gluttony.
So there are a lot of things that are equally wrong in God's eyes.
Exactly.
Now, one distinction though, the Bible does refer to homosexuality as unnatural.
Okay.
You know, it talks about how the men and women, particularly Sodom and Gomorrah, for example, they left the natural use of the opposite sex.
Exactly.
So in that regard, it's unnatural. But again, the criticism of the church is we tend to focus on that wrong, that sin, versus the other sins.
So why do you think that is, far as the church, condemns homosexuality more than any, I would say, that we have today? Because if you talk to some folks, they would say, okay, listen, you have a lot of homosexuals in the church. You have them on the choir. You know, you have some pastors. It is what it is.
So you have some correct in the choir.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So why do you think, that stigma for as the church is being so, bam, 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 beat you upside the head against homosexuality?
Well, I don't know. I think there's some of it is just people really haven't embraced and experienced the love of God and the forgiveness of God. And so it's the stigma. The stigma.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, when I was a kid growing up, people who were men, for example, who were gay, they were, and pardon me, the frou-frou type.
Exactly.
They were more effeminate. They dressed up in weird stuff. And so I think some of that it's just narrow thinking. God.
You think that's a taught behavior?
The narrow thinking?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
It's
Because
the same as being shallow.
Yeah.
and the same as being racist.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
people are
exactly.
taught to hate, taught to look at people side-eyed,
Right.
taught to think of themselves
That's true.
because I don't do that, then
Yeah, exactly.
I'm superior.
Because people are born pure. Everybody's born pure.
So there's some things that are taught.
So when he said people are, born pure, do you think some people are born gay?
I don't. And I'll
Okay.
tell you why.
Yeah.
God talks about choosing.
Mhm.
God never would put us in a position to where we could make a choice
Yeah.
if He didn't give us a choice. If that makes sense.
That's true.
You know,
That's true.
God would never condemn. He would never put us in a situation where He says this is a sin, this is wrong, don't do it. But at the same time, this is the only option to do.
Right.
So I don't subscribe to the idea that somebody is born
Yes.
gay.
Yes.
I remember, I think it was the Phil Donahue show. This
Yeah.
is been ages
Oh, wow.
and ages
Yes,
back when
yes.
dinosaurs ruled.
Right.
But there was a young girl on there, and she said she knew she was gay at 8 years old.
Wow.
Now I don't buy that simply because I've raised 2 daughters, and at 8 years old, kids are naturally confused about their sexuality.
You don't know what you are.
You know,
Exactly.
and you may have feelings about your coach or about your teacher.
Yes, exactly.
Now somebody has to come along and say, well, maybe you are this.
Right.
So that plants the seed that
They have
plants
to
the
be
thought.
introduced to.
Yeah, and so then they may think, well, maybe I am. Several of my friends, I grew up with a fellow who was, if you ever saw Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the character, I forget, the Lady Chablis.
Okay.
The character
okay.
Lady Chablis. Well, I went to school with him. His name is Benjamin Knox.
Oh, wow.
And we're from a small town in Florida, and so everybody knew Benjamin's story.
Right.
And so, because we knew Benjamin's story and what happened to him, it was no surprise that he turned out to be
Oh, wow.
gay.
Yes, yes.
Now, I preface all that. I say all that to say that in my 61 short years of living, I've met quite a few
like
people.
that
I've
short
served with a lot of people who were
Yes.
gay. And I've never seen anybody, then again, this is just my own
Yes.
limited experience.
Yes,
But the
yes,
people
yes.
that I worked with, that I knew personally, had some issues in their youth.
Okay.
Many of them, all of them, were assaulted.
Or
and
either
so
molested or
molested
something
as a-
like that.
as a
It's some
child.
type of sexual form.
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with it,
Well, I
how
think
they
so.
turn out.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why God leaves the judgment up to Him, because He's the only one who knows all of the factors that made us who we are and where we are.
Now, no, another thing I've heard is a lot of people say, like some women, they say because so many men have done them wrong, they don't want to deal with men anymore.
Same sex, same problems.
You're right, and you're right.
As long as we are people, we will have issues with one another.
Exactly. So that's basically an excuse.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is, we're sinners by nature.
Yes.
And
That's
we
true.
have that
And we
sinful
born
nature,
into sin.
and so
Yeah.
there are some people who, because of our sinful nature and all of these other factors that are piled up again, I had a bad relationship with this person,
Yes,
so I decided I'm going to swear off men anymore.
Right.
Well,
right.
and we choose to do something that will gratify our sinful nature.
Okay. So, how about I've heard and I've been in conversations with a lot of people about homosexuality. Do you think someone can overcome that?
There was, I don't know if they're still in existence now, but there was an organization called Operation Exodus, I believe.
Oh,
And
wow.
their work involved helping people come out of the homosexual
really?
lifestyle. I'll tell you what doesn't work. What does not work is people in the church praying that demon homosexual spirit out of somebody.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you can't beat somebody out of.
Yeah, of course, because that's not right.
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 But the Operation Exodus, and I hope I'm remembering the name right, but they had a lot of success in helping people move
Transition.
out of
Okay.
the lifestyle.
I think the problem is a lot of people are playing judge and jury, and
That's
that's
good.
not their place to do that.
Not at all. Not at all. As I was thinking about our discussion today, I was reminded of the woman in Jesus' day who was caught in the very act of adultery. The very act.
Wow.
Now, if you allow your imagination to run wild in that, I mean, when they brought her, And when you caught in the very act, you don't have time to put clothes on.
That's
you don't have time to, they drag you before and say, what do you say, Jesus? And Jesus simply said, anybody who doesn't have any sin, stone her.
Yeah.
And so those of us, our sin may not be the same, but we still have sins. So we are in no position to judge anybody.
And all sins are just as bad as the other.
Yeah, we are all on equal footing.
Exactly.
And so there are people who have adopted a same-sex lifestyle, or a gay lifestyle, lesbian lifestyle, and they do very well at what they do. They are excellent lawyers and doctors.
Right.
And so if I'm sick, or if I need emergency surgery, or if I'm trapped in a fire, I am certainly not going to ask.
Right.
I don't care
You're
if
not
you're
gonna
gay or
ask
straight
exactly.
or whatever. You get me out of this burning building.
Right.
I need this emergency surgery.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
now, there's a myth that myth or, some people say that there are homosexual acts in the Bible.
Homosexual acts?
Acts or people in the Bible. Is that true, or?
Well, the one that jumps out in my mind is the
Sodom and
Sodom.
Gomorrah.
Yeah.
Where the angels had visited Lot, and the men said, bring them out, let them go.
Exactly.
But are there other ones?
None that I can think of.
Okay, so that's
And
pretty much the only one.
and any Bible student knows how Sodom and how that
Right,
turned out.
exactly.
And now, I'm not ready to say that God judged Sodom and Gomorrah simply for that, because there are a lot of other factors
sins that
involved.
was going on.
There are a lot of other factors involved. So it wasn't just the men. I mean, if you're talking about what they wanted to do, these men wanted to become sexually involved with angels. These are God's messengers.
Right.
Wow.
So there's some other things that their level of depravity.
That's
was-
a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, so that was a little different.
That was in Genesis as
Yeah.
well, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
So you touched on adultery. Now, because we do have a lot of people in today's world, well, not in today's world, it's been going on for years, centuries, they don't see adultery,
That's one
as
of the
something
10
bad.
Commandments. That's one of the 10 Commandments. So.
But
even
you
that-
still
that's-
have folks that still
Yeah.
That's still part of the
go
moral
outside
law.
of the marriage,
Yeah.
and some have relationships literally outside of the marriage.
Mhm.
So,
Now,
what would you
and I'm
say to
gonna tell you-
that?
It's
I
still
will
wrong. it's wrong.
Yeah.
And anybody who suggests that God blinks when it comes to that type of behavior, he doesn't. Now, let's not confuse his grace and mercy
Exactly.
with his co-signing on that behavior.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, he allows grace he demonstrates grace by not consuming us when we do these
I
things.
call stored up prayers.
Mhm. I like that.
Literally stored up prayers.
I would use that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's equally wrong.
But they say that there are some men in the Bible that have multiple wives.
Yes.
Oh, here we
and that's
go with
where-
this myth again.
Well, that's
It's
not
in
myth,
the
that's true.
Old Testament.
Well, even in the New Testament, there were people that had. If you find it, I challenge you to find one example where somebody had more than one wife and didn't have a bunch of problems.
Exactly.
God allowed them to have multiple wives.
Because
I think primarily because for procreation.
okay.
It's hard for, I think one of the kings, I believe it was Hezekiah, had like 70 sons. Hard for.
Oh, wow.
Hard to have 70 sons with one wife.
I need to cut to Carol Lewis.
Well, I know some people trying.
But again, I challenge you to find anywhere, any instance, where if you had more than one wife, Abraham, prime example.
Yeah.
And because of the issues that ensued from that, we've got all these things that are going on now.
Right.
And Jesus summed it up. He said that, it's for this cause a man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, singular.
Yes.
And the two,
See,
man
I
and
think
woman,
men
will become one
they
flesh.
miss that. They think they say wives.
Repeat that one more
W-I-V-E-S.
time. Repeat that one more time.
Well, as he was explaining, that for this cause, to join together, a man shall leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife.
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 W-I-F.
And the two shall become one flesh.
Nine.
Not two or three or four.
Right.
Not three and a half.
Right.
It's the two.
That was a good point, Paul.
So in terms of marriage, God wants us to live, one man, one woman for life. That's his ideal.
Now, another question. Let's see. Weddings. They didn't have weddings back then.
Yeah, they did.
They did?
Just
How did they have weddings?
The weddings have always been celebrated. But now, if we try to think about our modern day weddings in the terms of ancient Israel,
Right.
that's a totally different story now, because in ancient, well, going back to Mary and Joseph,
Okay.
the Bible says that she was betrothed to Joseph. She was engaged, but according to their custom, it was as if they were married. That's why when when they found out she was pregnant, the Bible says Joseph was just going to put her away privately. He could have, but it was his right to have her stoned.
It wasn't his baby. It wasn't Joseph's baby.
So there've always been weddings, and in ancient times they would have their betrothal, their engagement, and then at the appointed time the bride would come and to claim his bridegroom would come to claim his bride, and he would go and prepare the home and get everything ready, and so when the time came, I'm going to get my boo. And that would be a big, huge thing. And as I explained to somebody about weddings, we have the wedding ceremony for a couple of reasons. It's a public proclamation.
Okay.
This is the woman I'm choosing. This is the man that I'm choosing.
No matter if it's 2 or 500 guests.
Oh yeah, I had performed weddings with just 2 people. It was we had to have a witness. But the other part of it is it's nobody can stay married by themselves. And so this
expand on that.
Well, this is the way of bringing other people
because divorce rates are high.
They are. But this is a way of people supporting the bride and the groom. There's some people that help with finances, but a lot of it is just emotional support.
Okay.
Janice and I, my wife Janice, we've been married for almost 42 years.
Whoa! Oh,
wow. Yeah, she gets the medal for putting up for me. But it's challenging.
I can't imagine.
As one chaplain said, you've got 2 imperfect people going together. And so it's
I'm glad you brought that up.
About me being imperfect?
No.
Call about to go in.
Okay, somebody said before, I've heard this before, that you can't stay in love with a person no matter how long y'all stay married.
Now I do think some days, you're
I'm not
gonna like you, but I'm gonna love you still.
Well,
okay, so.
Well, I think it depends on the individual.
Well, it more depends on what your definition of in love is. Because here's where the problem comes in. We think sometimes because we watch on TV and we think that there's gonna always be the fireworks.
Yeah, and the little house on the prairie.
Yeah, you go wake up. You can still have the picket fence and you can still have the little house on the prairie. But the fireworks may not be there all the time. And so. Being married to somebody for 41 years, there are times when, I really don't want to talk to you today. And that's okay. There are times when she's like, don't you have somewhere to go?
Exactly.
I spent many of those years in the military.
Yeah.
And so there were times when she probably won't see this. When it was like, I need somebody to go there. Can I? Here am I sitting in.
Exactly.
But the thing is, there are things that we can do to help keep the marriage relationship interesting.
Give some points, since we on that.
Well,
I mean, I'm not married, but I'm just give some points. I think for our viewers. Listen, we're not tagging that on there today, but give some points to some viewers.
Unwanted, unexpected gifts at unexpected times.
Okay.
Just because. Now I'm very fortunate. I work like 2 blocks away from her, so sometimes I'll walk down and have lunch with her.
Oh, how nice. Chivalry.
Generally, unless I'm ill, she normally gets breakfast in bed on the weekend.
Oh, listen, fellas.
Wait.
DJ Steel, take some corners.
Wait, why I gotta be in this?
Just saying.
I am not married.
Yet. I'm campaigning.
When you do, hey, breakfast in bed.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it doesn't take a lot. When people are, I think instead of being in love, like you've got this idea of, continued.
In love.
Extra romantic. And the stars are going to be brighter every day, and I'm going to hear birds and all that. It's more of a commitment. It's more of a commitment. And
finding your soulmate, pretty much.
Well, is there such a thing as a soulmate?
That's the next question.
About that.
Here's the next question.
Is there such thing as a soulmate?
there is the pastor of Moody Church, Dr. Erwin Lutzer. He made a statement. I was listening to his sermon on relationships, and he made a statement that I thought was so profound. He said, "The person that you're married to is the right person." Because
Whether you
well, the thing is, if you make that commitment,
it's more about you saying it's more about the commitment to the marriage
and to the person,
yeah. Because that's just the right thing to do.
Well, because marriage means that I'm committing to live in a relationship with you. And that doesn't mean that I'm gonna always hear the music, or I'm gonna always see the fireworks. My oldest daughter, who married his best friend, in her wedding vows, she talked about how she was going to do this, this, and this. But she said, it's because I will to do so. This is because I am willing to do this.
So whether you was in Vegas, got drunk, and met some random woman or whatever,
you know what?
Y'all said, let's go to the chapel. And we made that commitment to say I do. It's still a willful duty once you sober up.
Listen, I have never been to Vegas. Why you looking at me?
You get what I'm saying? So is it still? I'm just saying.
Yeah, and now again, if we're looking at the biblical idea of marriage. Ideally, you wouldn't get drunk and go.
Because you know what? Some people marry off wrong intentions.
They do.
You know, they meet someone today, and 2 weeks I'm in love. Let's go get married.
And that's why people should not wait until they decide to get married before they seek marital counseling. You should seek the marital counseling when you're thinking about even getting married.
Before you get engaged.
Before you get engaged.
Oh wow!
Because I've
never heard that.
In some of my counseling, I asked them, well, what is it you want? I said, well, let me guess. You've decided to get married. Now you want me to come up with a way to to help you make it work.
Right.
And so there should be some thought into marriage. People put more thought and planning into breeding dogs and horses than they do into finding a wife.
That's true.
But the Bible says whoever finds a wife finds a good thing.
Say that again.
That's good.
Listen, now I'm going. I know about to go. What do you think of women proposing to men? You know, I mean, what's just your thought? You know, because when you made that, I take it as the man's supposed to find it as a wife. But just break that down
he should.
in simple context.
The analogy of the first marriage, God brought Eve to Adam.
Okay, yeah.
And so, if God brings people together, I mean, one of my closest friends, she proposed to her husband.
Oh, wow.
He didn't have a problem with it. Some guys might jump on their male ego horse and say, well, I'm the one who's supposed to pursue. Doesn't matter.
That's pretty much a part of chivalry. The whole chivalry thing. That's where all that
goes both ways.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
I think ideally, though, a woman wants not just to be pursued, but she wants to be elevated.
Right.
Because that's your queen. I'm not trying to.
Supposed to be. Yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to work. And by the same token, ladies, that's your king.
Look in the camera.
Right. You got to treat him like your king.
If it's deserving on both sides too now.
Well,
if you're getting married, you're supposed to be deserving. It's supposed to be deserving if you're getting married.
When we talk about biblical biblical love means that I am seeking your highest good. And it doesn't matter what you do.
That's true.
It's still, I'm going to seek the highest good. And so,
if I wake up in the morning, hair all over the place.
If you burn the biscuits, it's okay. We can
bad smelling breath, you still love me just the same as you met me.
Is that?
I'm going to love you through all of that.
What's going to happen? Those are everyday things.
Okay.
He's like,
but okay, since we were on the subject of marriage, arranged marriages.
Most of the marriages in the Bible
are arranged. Yes.
When Isaac was getting ready to find a son, and he sent his servant. Right. Find a wife for this boy.
Yep.
And now God had a hand in that, because it was like, as soon as old girl saw Jacob, it's like, oh, I loved her. And so And by the same token, Jacob worked for
Forever.
Abraham was sending his servant Eliezer to go find a wife for Isaac, and then Isaac worked like 14 years
Yes,
Right, right.
yes.
for his wife.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, there's some validity to arranging a marriage.
I will say this. Not most, but a lot of military marriages
Oh,
are
yeah.
arranged. A lot of them are arranged for money and benefits.
Yeah, well,
So,
there
That
are
goes
some
back to
people
those
do that.
intentions. What are you marrying for?
Well, but now I think one of the challenges of marriages today, we're such a transit society. But my wife and I are from the same hometown.
Okay.
I knew her sister because we started first grade together, so
Oh,
I knew her
wow.
sister before I knew
Okay.
Janice. But I had been knowing her sister since I was 6 years old, and I met Janice when I was 14.
And so it's a little.
So and the thing is
History there.
when I introduced her to my mother when we started dating, my mother knew the family. Her father and my uncle were like, well, they called them road dogs back then. They were close friends. And so, but now because we're such a transit society, we don't get to know the family.
That is
Right.
so
You know,
true.
The old people
Or
back
the
in the day,
person.
when you bring somebody by, the first thing they want to know is who your people.
Right, right.
Listen, my mother's living, thank God, she still asks that question.
Mhm.
You know, well, who your people are, this and that, which is an important question.
Well,
Is it
you
very
know,
important?
nowadays, you really got to do that with so many baby daddies out there, because you got to know who your people are.
Yeah.
Because you might be dating your cousin, your sister, or something.
Exactly. But the older people thought it was very important to know the family history.
That's
It
true.
And
is.
so, and again, it goes back to that support. When people get married, you got to have people to support you.
Yes, you do.
When things get difficult in marriage, as they will,
Yeah.
when you get the arguments and you get the disagreements, there's got to be somebody level-headed enough to say, okay, girl, you sit here long enough, we had our tea, now it's time to go back home.
Right,
Like, girl,
right.
That's true.
you've had a couple of glasses, so hey, what you gonna do? It's time you go back home.
That's true. That's true.
Like, look,
So now-
you the world's welcome.
Now, I want to touch on, shacking as they call it.
Yeah.
Because, you
living together
listen,
before you
we
marry.
live in a society that's not, it's
That's
just
like a norm now.
It's the norm,
It is.
and we
That
have
made
some-
it right though.
No.
So, go ahead, I'm just saying. I throw that out there right now. She's like, dude.
Now, I'm not shagging. Put that out there.
Now, I will put this out there. I'm going to use his phrase. And you tell me somebody that's shacked up and don't have problems.
Well,
That is
and people,
true.
I think the thing
So
is,
why is people more, I don't know, accepting of just, I don't know, I won't say it's the easy way out of marriage, but
They
I don't
want to
know.
commit. They don't
Yeah.
want to commit.
it's so many different variables. Sometimes people are afraid.
Okay.
And I've used women as an example because
Okay.
of the ratio of men to women. And sometimes women will basically say, no, this is a way for me to at least have somebody in my life. But
Wow.
I think women get the short end of the deal on that one.
They
But
do.
that's just,
Ladies, you hear that coming
out there.
Coming from a man.
We all of us have to be comfortable with our singleness. Again, before my oldest daughter got married, it was kind of funny because she used to go out with her girlfriends, and they had gotten married. And on the one hand, they were saying, I got to go back and take care of the kids and the husband.
Yes.
And she's like, I don't have to worry about that. And she viewed her singleness as a gift.
Yes.
Because it not only it frees you up to do a lot of things,
I'm just
and
saying, yes.
you can really serve and help people. But when the time comes, you look at marriage as a gift. Because it is.
That's
It
true.
is.
But
It is.
there are some people who, for economic reasons, they decide to shack together, and now by shacking, I'm going to imply that there's more than just sharing the money.
Yeah.
There's some other sharing going on.
Extramarital.
And
Premarital, yeah.
premarital sex is just as wrong in God's eyes as extramarital sex. It's wrong. And it puts people at a huge disadvantage. Back in the mid-'80s, Focus on the Family did a tape called Sex, Lies, and the Truth, and talked about sex. And, I think it was A.C. Green who played for the Lakers
Yes,
at the time.
yes,
He was
yes,
a virgin.
yes.
And
yeah,
I don't know
for a long time. Yeah.
And so I don't know if it was his example, but I'm going to give it to him. But the idea was he would tell the girls to think about a rose, and every time you have sex with somebody, you pull a petal off.
Oh wow!
All right. Yeah. So, and then by the time you finally meet this guy, this is the guy I want to marry. I want to spend the rest of my life.
Yeah, with other
How
petals.
much are your roses?
Oh wow!
Yeah, exactly.
Now that's a good one.
That was an eye-opening experience. Like, really? Because once those petals are gone, you can't put them back.
There's a couple of people might need more than one rose, though. I mean, they might need a little more than one rose.
I can't even tell you how wrong you are.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so relationships are, God gave us relationships of all kinds for a reason. We are social creatures, and he said of Adam, it's not good that man should be alone. Now, of course, that was in context of Adam looking at Mr. Gorilla and seeing Mrs. Gorilla, looking at Mr. Zebra, seeing Mrs. Zebra, and like, wait, what's up with this? Ain't no Mr.
Not for
Adam,
me.
Miss Adam.
Exactly.
So in terms of procreation, but I think it holds true in other things. We are meant to be social creatures. And one of the downsides of social media now is that we don't talk to each other. We're really not communicating.
Not at all.
Lack of
People could be sitting in the same car.
Yes.
And have a text
texting each other.
Right.
Yes.
A text relationship.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so we really need to learn how to communicate and interact with each other on a personal level. We keep our shields up a lot.
And that would make a whole lot of relationships last a whole lot longer.
You got to get to know
God
people.
first in communication.
So now that we have that, this brings up the other topic, divorce.
Too many.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
all
okay, is that
all
related
can
to the
attest.
Bible?
It does. Jesus was teaching, and there was the subject of divorce came up, and he told them that from the beginning that wasn't God's intent. He gave them the permission to divorce because of the hardness of our hearts.
Oh,
But
wow.
God's never intended for people to get divorced. Now we are much more relaxed now. We got people that no fault divorces. I don't like you no more. You don't like me no more. So hey, let's just go and do this and get it over with. And the people marry, divorce, and at some point somebody got to say to themselves, maybe it ain't them.
Yeah.
But we, instead of trying to work it out, it's just too easy.
Yeah, that's the easy way to go.
But that's not God's intent. God's intent is for us to, if we make the commitment to marry somebody, to work it out. Because people spend their lives looking for Mr. Right or Miss Right.
If that's such a thing.
There is no such thing.
It's not. No one is perfect.
And that's the
Yeah,
problem.
no one is perfect.
To kind of put a spin on the looking for the perfect church, if you find the perfect person, don't marry him because you're going to mess them up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But see, you're not supposed to look for anybody anyway.
Well, it's okay if you look. But again, it's asking God to give you better glasses.
Right. There you go. Right.
Because
that is so true. Oh my God.
Men and women are totally different. Men are visually stimulated.
Exactly.
Right. So we look for.
We're emotional.
Yeah. and so
see, I rest my case.
That's why we need, God to help us out.
Yes.
I don't mind telling you that when I saw Janice, see, and this was in the 70s. This was in the 70s, so hot pants were the thing.
Yeah.
So I said, bless the Lord, oh my. It was all that. I had no clue.
Well, thank God, it's 42 years later.
He is definitely to get the glory for that.
Wow.
But we make divorce so easy, and it's like people don't want to work anymore. But marriage, people you work hard on the job.
That's true.
If you're an athlete, especially at the professional
Yes.
level, you work like a dog
Yeah.
to maintain your level of competence and expertise in that.
That's true.
Well, marriage needs just as much work.
Wow.
Say that again.
Marriage
Yeah,
needs
say it for
just-
call.
Sometimes it needs even more work because
it
we go through seasons. When we first I got married, I was 19, Janice was 18.
Oh, wow.
And
That
so
was young.
I know, right?
I wasn't even
Same
thinking
thing,
about
same thing
I was
like
at my
that.
party and I never 18, 19.
one of my guidance counselors is a Church of God in Christ pastor, and for the next 20 or 30 years, every time I go home on leave, y'all still married? Yeah, Elder Shepherd, we still married. Y'all were so young. But it takes a lot of work. We go through these seasons, and needless to say, I'm not the same person at 61 as I was at 19. And we go through medical issues. We go through these emotional ups and downs with the job. We got grandchildren now. We got as a youth pastor, I got the other. So there's a lot of different things that we go through. And so if a person expects, a woman expects her husband to be the same tall, dark, and handsome hunk of burning love that he was at 21.
I mean, come on, can he at least try to maintain a little bit?
Yeah, he should try to do something. Should try to do
that was
something.
my little key for that.
That's why I'm up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning trying to work out.
Men, viewers, men, listen. I'm just saying.
I'm just gonna shake my
I'm
head.
just honest.
I'm gonna shake my head.
By the same token, I get a jump, fellas, and get out of here. Because by the same token, the brother wants somebody to be able to
Exactly.
stimulate. Yeah, so-
Ladies.
Listen, I'm big on. I'm big on that too. Ladies, we got to hold it right and tight.
But what happens if there's a sickness?
That's true.
My wife had a stroke years ago. Before that, it was breast cancer. And so she had concerns about having that bilateral mastectomy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there are times when we got to reassure, and it just goes on. But my point is, if you're going to be in a relationship, you have to have the commitment. You've got to do the work. I think one of my favorite passages of Scripture. There's two. Peter tells men to dwell with our wives in knowledge, and that means we have to study our wives. We got to know them. We got to know what makes them tick.
Another key point.
I used to. She is a type A personality. She wants everything strict, blah blah blah, right? So sometimes back in the day, I would just go by and just turn one of the napkins. She had the little place napkins there, and they were all certain. Sometimes I just walk by and turn around, just to aggravate it. But I knew that's her pet peeve. So we got to dwell with them in knowledge. We got to know them. We got to know what makes them tick. We got to know what makes them happy. What makes them sad. The other scripture that really challenges me is that the Bible says that we're supposed to love our wives even as Christ loved the church.
Ooh, expand.
And I was like,
expand on that.
Seriously? Are there any exceptions to that? No. Love a wife sacrificially. So that means putting her needs, her desires, her wants above my own. That can be a challenge sometimes.
Say it one more time. One more time.
Men, love your wives even as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Ooh, that's a hard one. It's tough. But the command is there, so we got to do it. But
tough conversation.
And also, the Bible also tells wives to honor and obey their husbands. Not be a doormat.
Expand on that, because you know what? Some men, they take that out of context.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
God never wants anybody to be a doormat.
Yeah.
You're
supposed to obey me. I mean, I know some men that have that thinking, they want their wives to obey them. And, even if they are living outside the will of God.
There's some things that God doesn't. He doesn't want women to be doing, but He wants women to honor their husbands. Dr. Tony Evans said something once that I thought was profound. He said, "A man can live without love, but he cannot live without respect."
He's right about that.
Well, I didn't say.
Well, he's right about that.
I ain't that smart.
That's a good one.
But the thing is, so in a relationship, people want to be respected. And I'm not saying you got to come in and wash my feet every day, unless you want to. but it's but it's about respect, and it's about honoring. For me, it's honoring my wife not only as my wife but as an individual, as a human being.
Right.
Wow.
So, on that part right there, we're gonna talk about domestic violence. So
no excuses.
No, it's not. But
That's
how does that
exactly
as it relates to the Bible?
Well, again, it goes back to husbands loving their wives as Christ loved the church. and Paul even said, love your wife like you love your own body. Now, unless you're some kind of masochistic sicko, you're not going to be beating yourself up.
That's true.
I can't think of any reason why, and I'll use men hitting women simply because that's generally the rule. But nobody should be hitting anybody.
Exactly.
And I think it's a very insecure person, man, who would do that.
Yeah.
God gave us brains, and there are a lot of ways to work out our differences and our disagreements without having to come to physical violence. It's a sign of immaturity. It's a sign of insecurity. There's no reason for it. There's no justification for that.
Okay.
True.
And I challenge anybody to find me an example of
Bible.
any of the patriarchs, any of the elders, or anybody else beating some their wives.
Because that never happened in the world.
Well, it
Did it?
may have. I can't find any evidence.
Yeah.
It may have. And this was in a society where men ruled.
Right.
So maybe he could have her thrown out and excommunicated or something. I don't know. But the thing is,
Well, they wanted to stone the woman.
well, she's caught in adultery.
Yeah.
And the other thing I have to add on to that, because I think Jesus really got a little bit upset, because where was the man? If she got caught in the act of adultery,
okay.
if anybody's woman, bring the brother too. But anyway, I digress.
See?
So,
Y'all see?
so in terms
I've been
of
getting away for a long time.
with domestic violence, and I don't know why they even call it domestic, because there's nothing domestic about it.
Oh, wow.
It's
Then.
Yeah.
But yeah.
violence in the home is just no place for it.
It's not.
The family unit, we had family before God established the church. And so the family unit is where we're supposed to be able to come to get the affirmation. It's to be protected, to grow and develop, and to be everything that God called us to be. And we don't understand how we can damage one another by not having that safe, nurturing environment. So there's no place for
That
that.
should be a national holiday, Family Day. But
I'm sure Facebook got
besides Thanksgiving
But
and Christmas,
we have
just
forgotten
saying.
how, I think the problem is we've forgotten how critical the family is to American society. It really is the cornerstone. Before we had any other relationships, we had a family.
Well, that's because there's too many people trying to tear the family down.
Well, and there's too many family
broken
people trying
homes.
to tear
Yeah,
the family
yeah.
down.
And broken homes
we have
as well.
we have to defend and protect our families.
Wow.
Real men have to stand up for their families. We have to know our wives. We have to understand our children. We have to know them. The Bible, now, y'all heard this one before. Train up a child in the way that he should go.
My father used to
And
use
when
it
he's
all
old,
the time.
Yeah, but now what we think about that is go get me a limb, go get me a belt. And that's important. I mean, corporal punishment has its place. Yeah.
That's the famous one right there.
Yeah, we always got that one.
Yeah.
And I had to go do the dead man walking thing, go and get my own switch.
Yeah.
And take the baby steps and not to get the little switch. Because what happened is she goes to the whole tree.
Right.
And, but what that verse really means, train up a child in the way that he should go, is that God has created each of us with our own distinct personalities.
Okay.
Every child has their own personality. They have a
That's
certain
true.
bent. And anybody who has more than one child understands that if you try to raise one way and then try to raise one the same way,
Yeah.
Don't work.
Exactly.
because they're different.
Yeah.
And so what we're supposed to do is to study our kids and to understand their personalities, their bents, the gifts that God gave them.
Talk
and
to your kids. Talk to your kids.
And listen to your kids.
Listen to them.
Yes,
Exactly.
Because a lot of I grew up in the children should be seen and not heard era.
Yeah.
I grew up in that.
And we tried to make sure that our kids were listened to. And but that's the thing. It's God gave us the family as a gift, and so it's again it's work. It's like planting a field. You cannot grow a crop without putting in the work.
Exactly.
You got to
But we
weed it.
don't have. But I understand what you're saying. That God gave family, is a gift. But we don't have that. Well, some of us don't have that now. You have, single parenting homes right now, and you have a lot of kids that are just roaming. I mean, like, I've seen kids, they are just mad. They're out in the world,
kids raising
because
themselves.
exactly. So that is gone as well. So
And I would ask people, how's that working for us as a society?
Well, we see what's happening now.
Statistics shows.
We see what's happening now.
Yes.
We got school shootings. We got people people killing each other. I mean,
I can't help but wonder with the shooter. Both his parents died.
mhm.
And I can't help but wonder if why somebody else didn't step in and nurture that kid. Why, even when I don't know what kind of illnesses or what the circumstances of the parents' death, but if they were ill, why didn't somebody else come along and help out? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
You know, when we were growing up, in my neighborhood, we had older cousins living across the street. We had people who knew us since the day we were born.
Right.
And so if something happened, we had somebody to step in.
That's true. That's true.
But I don't.
But that goes back to what you were saying about family.
Exactly.
The family's not there anymore.
Exactly.
But we try to make sure ours is there.
Yeah.
As best we can.
Yes.
And family members are not perfect.
No.
Through all of our faults and all of our errors and all of these failings that we've got, they're still our children, they're still our wives, they're still our brothers and sisters.
You're supposed to love them regardless.
Exactly.
love.
Just remember, kids and parents, we are all human.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, that's what makes us human.
Exactly.
And you know, just like we want to be on the receiving end of forgiveness when we mess up, we also got to
You gotta give it
when they mess up.
Exactly.
That's true. For some people, that might take time.
And you can't use
It's the truth.
We can't go use the standard, do as I say, not as I do. You gotta go by example.
Yeah, it's a dangerous precedent when you do that. There's an old saying that I can't hear what you're saying because I'm too busy watching what you're doing.
Oh, wow. I never heard that one.
That's a dangerous precedent to set when you tell people to do as I say, not as I do.
Because kids naturally gonna act what you do. They're gonna
they do. And you know, there's some things that I think kids are exposed to now that are not good for them. They're being exposed to grown-up things, and we're asking them to bear burdens that God never intended for them to bear as children.
Exactly.
They're dealing with things that you know, homelessness with children, poverty with children.
Right.
I grew up in a family. When I was born, there were 14 people in my house.
Wow.
It was a 3-bedroom house. The boys slept in the back room, all 8 of us. 2 beds.
From a large family.
Yeah, 2 beds, and then the girls slept in the middle room. My mother and father slept in the front bedroom. And when my dad went off to go to work, he worked at a Fuller's Earth mine. And there was a type of a clay that they used to make detergent and stuff back then.
Oh, wow.
So he left when it was early in the morning, came back around 6 o'clock in the evening. And as a child, I never ever even thought that he wasn't going to come back home.
Because you knew.
It was there. I presume that.
Yes.
I never thought that we would never have a roof over our heads. We always had one. My sister still lives in the same house that we grew up in.
Wow.
I never thought I never even imagined there wouldn't be any food to eat. Might not be what I wanted, but we always had something to eat.
Exactly.
But kids are dealing with you know, poverty, with homelessness, with hunger.
So true, they have a lot going on.
And they're not supposed to be dealing with that. And I can't help but wonder with all of the school shootings now, how that's going to impact society as a whole because of what these kids are being exposed to as youngsters.
Right.
And not just the high school shootings, the elementary shootings, the
Because
church shootings.
when we were in school, we didn't even imagine anything like that.
No.
That wasn't even thought of.
I remember kids when I was in middle school and high school, somebody got a brand new rifle for Christmas. They brought it and showed it around. I bought it. My grandpa bought
we
me
wasn't at that age.
It was no big deal. It was no, because you never ever thought that somebody was going to come in and shoot the place. It just, that was so, it was way beyond anybody's imagination.
Yes.
But now, you know, even the little children, and what they're not only seeing it, the ones who are actually there at ground zero are experiencing it, but the other ones are seeing it on television.
Right.
And now the small children are wondering, could this happen to us?
Right.
So instead of thinking about it, as the one lady mentioned last week when they were talking about all of the problems that were going on in society back in the 60s and 70s, and one kid asking, well, where was Batman with all this?
Right.
All of this,
They got new issues.
Instead of children being the starry-eyed dreamers that God wanted them to be and playing all of these games and giving all of us hope that it's going to be okay.
Right.
Now they're dealing with these things.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. Wow.
Well, since we got on the off topic,
We
we
did.
got a little bit off topic,
Fine.
but we're gonna reel it back in.
Yeah, and recap.
But this is what I want you to do. Okay, in biblical sense, can you tell our viewers what a relationship means and what it's supposed to be as far as the Bible goes?
Well, if I had to sum up any relationship, I would use, first of all, love. Now, love God first.
Yeah.
So that's first and foremost, because the first relationship was, I had a chapter, and he talked about when God created everything else. With everything else, He spoke it into existence. Light be, let there be the firmament, let there be this and that. But with man, it was a little different. If I remember right, the Hebrew word was Yesod. And God didn't speak man into existence. He fashioned man, and then He got really intimate with man. Yeah. And the Bible says He blew into man the breath of life. So there's that intimate relationship there.
Wow, that's a whole nother subject.
And so, God wants us to have relationships with one another, but it's got to be predicated on respect for you as a human being, first and foremost. And then there's the love piece. And love means seeking your highest good. Regardless of what you do, what you say, I'm going to do the best that I can. In ancient times, even if you were an enemy and you came into my camp, I'm obligated to take care of you.
Yeah. Wow.
Even if you just what you
enemy.
do.
Wow. Okay.
They used to do that. They used to do that. That was the code you lived by. Now, after you leave, it's going to be a different story. So you get on the road and go, I'm going to cut you down. But there's got to be that mutual respect. There's got to be the me seeking your highest good. That's the agape love. And sometimes we confuse that with romantic love, with the erotic type of love. But agape means I'm going to seek your highest good, and it doesn't matter what you do.
That goes with the biblical love.
That's the biblical.
Yeah.
That's the biblical.
Okay.
So you got to have the respect. You got to have the biblical love, and not just for the individual, but also
for yourself. Exactly.
Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as you love yourself." And there are times when, I'm going to try to do the best I can for my neighbor, but how do we love ourselves?
You can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. You don't love yourself.
And I think there's a huge part of the problem. There's some people that have this self-loathing because of the color of their skin, because of my economic condition, because of whatever. I've got a disability, so I don't like myself.
They're having a pity party. They have their own pity party.
Maybe a part too. But that's deep.
One of the things I love about the creation is that everything God created, He said it was good.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that means those of us who have these various abnormalities or infirmities or whatever we got, God created us and we're good. So we all have worth.
Wow.
You don't have to be a billionaire to have worth. You don't have to be able to sing to have worth. You just have to work intrinsically because we created.
Because everybody was created with a purpose.
Wow.
Indeed.
He said it best.
All right. So that's going to conclude this episode of
Ringside Rhetoric.
We thank Reverend Alex Nelson for joining us.
A lot of great points on relationships in the Bible.
And don't forget to hit us up on our Facebook page, Instagram, Ringside Rhetoric, and also our website, ringsiderhetoric.com. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, just hit us up on our email, rsrhetoric@gmail.com. rsrhetoric@gmail.com. Alright, so for this edition of Ringside Rhetoric,
it's your man's DJ Steele along with Miss Charmaine. We're hitting truth in the face, cause that's our claim to fame. We're gonna talk about the topics no one talks about. We gotta find us a solution to the problem we got. It's time to take it to the ring, let's get it on and pop in. We're strapping on the gun so we can get this thing rocking. Gonna keep it 100, that's as real as it gets. Now it's time to hit you with that ringside rhetoric.
Round two and what we say might sting. We coming live, hitting truth in the face, popping good topics so that you can relate. So take a backseat to the BS chatter. Recognize real on the topics that matter to our society. Let go of your pride. Listen real close as we take you ringside.
Ringside. every topic's what the show is about. We hit 'em with a left, we hit 'em with a right. We got a KO, we on fire tonight. One topic down, now we're looking for some others. As long as God's first, the real will be uncovered. Body blow, headshot, then another body blow. Now that we have your attention, on with the show.